Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Things We Do Not Want to Talk About. Can you all believe it? We are almost halfway into the season already. And disclosure, you all, this may be the last season for the Things We Do Not Want to Talk About. So I'm feeling nervous. I have a lot of thoughts. I've been doing a lot of planning, and I wanted to give like a little hint in the beginning of it. So I know. We'll talk about it later. But on the bright side, I do want to say thank you to everyone who watched my last visual on YouTube. That was the one I got the most views on. I almost got 100 views actually. So, I'm getting my YouTube up. I'm not a content girl, so that was a lot for me. So I want to say thank you. Thank you, Josh, for being my guest. Thank you for being open. Thank you for having a candid conversation with me. And I love you so much. So today was one of those days where I've just been overstimulated. Y'all know I'm a teacher. We have about like 12 days left of school, and I'm just counting down the days. And I'm just like, okay, I gotta do this. I have to do that. I'm worried about this. I'm thinking about the money this summer. I'm thinking about my summer job, the learning space. I've just have a lot of planning, a lot of things on my mind. So I've been so overstimulated. But today, as I was on my lunch break, and I was just thinking, I was in deep thought, and something that just came over me with like a whole different trajectory on like what I was gonna do my episode on today. And I hate when that happens because it throws my vibe off. But I'm like, okay, maybe it's timely because we are in May. It's still Mental Health Awareness Month, and I feel like it's timely. So today, when I was in the car, and I was just in a very reflective space. I don't know if it feels heavy, like even me now about to share, it feels a little heavy. But I don't know, something told me just to talk about it. So I hope it comes off as good as I plan. Y'all let me know. But one thing I started this year, 2024, because I'm someone that always has a lot on my mind. I'm always thinking, I'm always questioning, I'm always like writing stuff on little pieces of paper I find. But now what I've started is in my notes, I'll write down the year, and I'll just write down different notes that come up in my life, or different things that I'm thinking about, or different things that I question. And I was listening to 16 Characters by Beyonce, and I'm not a diehard Beehive fan. I was more so like a Destiny's Child early on Beyonce fan. But the lyrics of 16 Characters have been on my mind so much. And I was creating a reel, and I was writing down this long caption, and I'm just like, where did all of this workaholicness come from? Where did all of this overexhausting myself come from? Where did all of this people pleasing come from? All of that, right? And a quote or a sentence I should say that came up was, I grew up fast, so I didn't have time to be a kid for long. And that stuck with me. That stuck with me today, and that made me change my whole outline on what this podcast episode was going to be about. So I have not ever really went in detail about my growing up or how I am the way I am. But now that I have, moved out, and I'm redoing things, and I'm stopping some patterns that I've once had, I'm now looking at things through a different view. So y'all know I'm from Detroit. I was born and raised here. I have a sister named Aini. She's important in the story because we're 18 months apart. And we have the same mom, same dad. So we've grown up together. And as I'm thinking about like my own mental health and getting through my childhood traumas, I thought this was a really good topic to talk about as it relates to mental and emotional trauma. So I'm just want to jump into it. So lots of times when we think about trauma, we think about sexual assault, or we think about physical assault, right? And in the court system, specifically, those two are the main things, right? Unless you're being like raped, sexually assaulted, or you're being beat on, you having a quote unquote problem is not really one that they will focus on unless it's like evidence per se. So growing up, I was raised by my mom and my dad for a short period of time. My mom and dad were married, and then my mom and dad got a divorce. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I don't know the exact number. The exact number, the exact age. I was kidnapped from my school that I was going to in elementary school. I was kidnapped for a year. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and my dad couldn't find me. And I know y'all think like, how are you kidnapped? Was it on the news? But when you were married to someone and it's the mother that takes the child and not the dad, it doesn't get the publicity the way it is. Also, if it's not something where it's like the child is in great danger or something like that, it doesn't make the news. But that was my upbringing to start off, right? So I don't really remember much before that period, but I do know I was gone for a year. My dad had found me, like the private investigator stuff had found me after a year because my mom had tried to enroll us in school, and that's when it had alerted them. And yeah, I finally got back with my dad, but in between that time, I had went to foster care for about a week. After we were found and my dad found out we were there, we were sent to foster care in the meantime while my daddy had to make the transition to gear. So my dad didn't go on planes or anything like that. So he had to drive here. And I don't know really what was the holdup that took a week. It may have been like just a process period. But it took a week process. So I don't really remember much about foster care. I just remember it was a lot of kids in there. Nothing bad happened. We was only there for a week. But I just remember like them not having no cakes or sweets. And growing up, I always had something sweet with my dinner. So that was something that just stood out to me. But something, I don't know why I feel I'm getting so emotional right now. But something that stood out from that time of me being there, I just remember of like my sister always being so unhappy and being the one that would like cry, right? So she would cry in the kitchen in the dark, right? Just cry for our daddy, because we knew something was wrong, right? But at 4 and 5 years old, you don't have the words to describe it. But we know like the way we were living was uprooted, right? And everything that we once knew became nothing, you know? So during that time I was staying with my mom. Keep in mind, I had not ever lived with my mom by myself. It was just always my mom, my dad, and my sister, but not ever by ourselves. So after that time, keep in mind, nothing probably happened that I can remember during that time. So it wasn't like I was in pain during that time, but I dealt with a lot of emotional trauma during that year I was down there, right? Of like us being in hiding and us not being able to talk to our daddy and him not knowing where we was at, right? I think it took a toll on me more so mentally than what I knew or what I could recollect. So we get past that point. I end up going back to my daddy. And I just remember going back to my room. I think I had a TV or something at that point, and my daddy was just so happy to get us back. And as I got older and, you know, you hear the stories and like, you know, I start to question like, you know, why I don't live with my mom and stuff. And my uncomfortability with her, at that time I was maybe more so about like 10 or 12, whatever, right? Because we didn't see her for a long time after that. Of course she got her custody taken away from her, but she was always fighting for visitation. We were always like in family therapy. We was in court. Anybody who has had to deal with a custody battle, you know how like you would go into court, you would talk to the judges would talk to you, they talk to your parents. And because Michigan is a quote unquote, I say quote unquote, fair state, they always try to make sure that visits are given to both parents if they are in a space or a state of being where they can. So around this time, I had to be, we'll just say 10. Sometimes my ages are off, but as I was thinking today and even going back, I just remember a lot of my childhood, it was spent trying to coddle my sister and always trying to be the one that would just keep the peace. So my sister is not like me. She's not as calm as me. She's not a people pleaser. So her and my mama got into it all the time. She made it clear that she did not like her. I didn't like her that much either, and I was always very uncomfortable with her. But I was someone that would be like, okay, I got to visit her for this Tuesday for like 2 hours or whatever, right? And we had to meet up at the police station. Or I had to see her for the weekend from Friday to Sunday, and I was going to see my daddy as soon as I got back or whatever. And during that time and just me going over it, it just makes me go back to, okay, the instances of me people pleasing to always be the people pleaser. Me not being able to say what I wanted to say because I didn't want my mom to get mad at me. And I was trying to make these 2 days with her go as seamless as possible so I could hurry up and go home. Because I knew if she felt like I was getting irritated or I wanted to be with my daddy or anything that place her as like the other, she would either drop us off late, she wouldn't want to take us back home. She had threatened us with like, oh, I'm your mama and I could do what I want to do, blah blah blah. And as I was thinking about this and I was thinking about the song, I thought about, wow, I haven't been a kid for that long, right? I learned how to manipulate at a really early age. And I learned how I was being emotionally manipulated as well. Of course, now as an adult, I'm saying these things, but looking back, I'm now looking at the pieces and how they've affected me. So, going past that, I looked at the settling. I looked at the different things that I experienced with her, and I look at how the trauma from that emotional and mental trauma that I didn't really realize was on me is starting to come out more as an adult. And it triggered me because now that I moved out again and I was looking like, oh my God, I have this fear, right, of being away from my daddy, or I don't want to get too far away from him. But now where I'm at, it's like I want to get from under him, because I felt like I literally looked at my daddy as like my light, right? And when I mean my light, I mean like I can't do it without my daddy. I'm indebted to my daddy, because growing up, when you have a dad that take care of you the way mine did, and he came and got me, right? And he dealt with my mama doing this and doing that, and feeling like, oh, well, you know how they always say, a man don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know too many men that's raising their daughters. And being just hearing that and being taught that for so many years on and on, I'm now starting to learn unconsciously where this mentality of me feeling like I've been indebted to him has came from. And the reason why it's so important in this season where I'm at, because what I am getting away from is taking on the financial burdens of wanting to make sure that my daddy needs are met, and not feeling like I owe him anything. And he hasn't done anything intentionally to make me feel like that. It's me feeling like that. And then now my actions of what I've done and me overexhausting myself to make sure I can do things for him that really I can't afford to do, right? But me feeling like I owe him all the time, they're coming from this space of insecurity and lack of feeling like, oh my God, if it wasn't for my daddy, where would my life be? Or if it wasn't for him willing to put his whole life on hold and raise two girls, where would my life be? Right. And as I'm going back and I'm looking at my childhood and thinking about how a lot of the emotional trauma I've went through has really done a number on me, I'm able to analyze things. So going back to when we got back from being kidnapped, right? For a long time, even in the physical, I was affected, right? If I heard my mom or if I saw my mom, I would like run. And I created this a custom, really, right? Where anytime I saw her, I ran. Like the teachers at my school, like if my mom was to come up to the school, she wasn't supposed to, they would like hide me in closets, or I would hide under the desk because I was always so fearful that she would take me again. And now, as I think about stuff like how I don't do certain things, I won't go away from home too far. I came home every weekend when I was in college because I feel like I was getting away from my daddy. I was getting away from what was safe to me. A lot of these things I realized like are my trigger points, and I just didn't realize how much that mental pain and endurance was wearing on me, right? And I know this is a conversation that you don't talk about, right? You don't know what it's like for the mother to be the person at fault, right? And the daddy is the one that has to actually take on the role of being his father, being a provider, having to take care of two girls by himself, right? People don't know that. So as I went through that part, right, we got past that part, okay, I moved back with my daddy years after. Of course, my mama still fought for visitation, right? And I do need to say this because this is important. My mom is not a bad person. What got her custody taken away was because she was a negligent parent. She wasn't fit. And I wish I could say the crazy things that she would say, but I don't think I'm comfortable at that point right now. But she made like a lot of accusations about my dad and me, and my sisters, and saying things are being done. And once things came out and the truth came out and they looked at her, she was like insane for some of the things she was creating in her head. That's how her custody had got taken away, which is not common for women in Michigan at all. So dealing with that, not knowing the truth, right? You got one parent saying one thing, you got one parent saying another thing. It was like I became a voiceless child. And as I'm older now, and I've noticed like emotional. I'm noticing like, me finding my voice is so important because I'm like, okay, at some point in time I lost it, and I didn't really realize that I lost it until now that I've gotten older and I like want to stand up for myself more, or like have my own word, be my own person. It's like I went through something that made me feel like I wasn't that powerful, or that I couldn't be my strongest self. So I'm like, okay, Kinga, but you know what I'm saying? You can keep going and you can overcome. And I tell this story because I think about many people dealing with not your typical things of like emotional trauma with a parent, right? So when it's not sexual abuse, or it's not physical abuse, right? Or it's not something that is shown to the naked eye, sometimes it can be overlooked. But I know that there are lots of people that deal with traumas of just growing up with like a narcissistic parent, or a parent with mental health issues, or a parent who's just not the best for you. And it comes out in different ways. So as I'm learning and I'm having this conversation with you all, for you all to look at like, okay, what are these things? Even if it's not as crazy as mine, right? But like, what are some of these stories that you've told about yourself that come from childhood? Or what are some of the situations you continuously find yourself in that do not serve your best and your highest self just because of the fact that it's not for you, right? These things are not things that affirm your existence, your honor, your integrity, your beauty, you know what I'm saying, your worth. And it's important for us to go back to those times of deficits in those negative spaces to figure out how did we get here and how will we go forward, right? And I put the emphasis on how will we go forward. So as I look at that chapter, right, we got past that part. I was in therapy. So therapy for me as an adult, it wasn't a strange thing because I was in family therapy when I was, like 9 years old, 10, 11, 12, 13. So all of that is nothing new for me, right? And I always enjoy someone analyzing and picking at my brain. So from that point on, right, my mom basically had custody. No, she had visitation. So visitation looks like maybe on Tuesday she'll come get me for a couple hours, or on the weekend, every other weekend, she'll come get us from like Friday to Sunday. She was always very unstable, right? She wasn't reliable, and she did what she wanted to do. I still probably hate the court system to this day because of that. And why I said that is because, for example, say if she had to pick me up at 5, right? And then she's supposed to bring us back at 5 at the police station on Sunday. If she was irritated with us, if she was trying to make my daddy mad, if she wanted to prove a point of like she does what she want to do and nobody will stop her, she'll intentionally not drop us off to like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. knowing we wanted to go back home, right? Knowing we didn't want to be there. I didn't ever feel comfortable with my mom, like ever. Like to this day, now that I'm even an adult, I don't even like be with her and like about herself thing because of the fact of just like being privately with her. I still get that fear of like, oh my God, she may take me, or oh my God, she may not bring me back. Although I got my own car, you know what I'm saying? I didn't came here, we not nothing, but it's just like that emotional trauma and that mental heartache of what you go through as a kid. It comes out as an adult, and it comes out in so many different ways. So, thank you. So as I'm looking at it, and I've been doing a lot of digging even more because I do plan to see her this summer. And I am ready to unpack this a bit and just kind of move on. But going back to it, it's like, woo, it was heavy. And I don't think I quite realized how heavy it was because I'm so far removed from it now, being that I'm older, and I haven't had to go with my mom, like be with her and like, oh, I gotta go on my weekend since maybe I was like 15 years old or 16, maybe even like 14, you know what I'm saying? After a while, she just like lost rights, period. You know what I'm saying? Because she just kept messing up. We kept having issues. So me and my sister weren't forced to go anymore, thank God. But during those last seasons, right, of just 14 years old, like 15, going like the growing up years of just like a lot of the damage she's done. And I'm just now starting to like deal with it and see it, where it's just like she's done a lot, you know? And as I'm exploring this now as an adult and having this conversation, I'm telling the story for context so that you all will learn and also hear a really good story, but also to think about how you grow up, right? You grow up, your parents are the people who you look at as your providers or your protectors. But it's like, what does it look like when those people don't feel their role? And how do you grow up as a kid, right? How do you have your childhood, or how do you lose your childhood, or how do you become a young lady in that world dealing with that, right? So you always hear in life, oh, you need a mama, right? A mama teach you how to love yourself. A mama teach you this. You learn how to be a woman, blah, 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 right? So for me, not having those traditional things, although I have my grandma, that's the love of my life, thank God for her, but not having like that traditional upbringing, not having like that tightness with her, and not having like that woman that has showed me life. I have truly saw how hurtful it can be, but because I am a positive person, I'm looking at the new trajectory. I'm also thinking about how it is going to blossom me and make me into a better person. So when I think about mental health and when I think about why it's so important for me, it's because I deal with it, right? So what I have not mentioned yet, and where this all ties into, my mom deals with mental health issues. My dad was a schizophrenic. Her brother was 100% schizophrenic. He was actually killed because he was schizophrenic, and people couldn't understand why he was doing the things that he was doing. So he was killed. Her dad was on drugs, and her mom also didn't know how to love her grandma, my maternal grandmother. She loved her boys more than she loved my mom. So my mom didn't ever really know what love was like. And then my mom's mother was one of like 12, and her mom had to send all her kids to foster care because she couldn't take care of them. So a common thread that has been shown in my pattern of my history, maybe I'll call it, or just my makeup of like my family life on my maternal side, is these mental health issues, the lack of stability, and the lack of love. So now, being that I'm distant from my mom, in that way, I'm able to see it for what it is, and not a pity party type of thing, but more so I just don't think I ever sat down and really realized the damage that was done, how it has affected me as I'm an adult, but also how I want to unlearn it, you know what I'm saying, and become a better person. And there's nothing wrong with me, you know what I'm saying? But y'all get what I'm saying, of me just being more self aware. So when I talk about mental health and I talk about these topics, it's super personal for me. Like, it's super, super duper personal. Like, you don't know, like, some people don't know what it's like to, like, I could tell my mom everything that I'm telling y'all, right? And she'd be like, oh, honey, oh my God, like, we got to pray. Or, girl, those stories your daddy said, right? And it'd just be like, wow, like, you really are like not hearing me. Like, everything I'm saying, my feelings, my thoughts, my lived truth, you're denying it. You are saying I'm wrong. You are saying like you just don't want to deal with it, right? And I realized what was a hard thing, it may be just as hard for her to deal with it just as it is for me. And that has taken a lot of growth to come to that conclusion. And what will shock y'all the most, right, is I talk to my mama almost every other day. Like, me and my mom are fairly close, right? So although I've said all of that, we've dealt with this. I haven't ever lived with my mom. I haven't spent over like 2 days with her at one time ever in my life. Maybe like during the breaks or something, you know what I'm saying? I had to spend an extra day, but I don't have that closeness with her. But yeah, I talk to her every other day. And what that can show you is you can deal and understand and accept people for how they are, but it can be at a certain level. So how I interact with my mom is I have boundaries in place that I still do not have the closest with her because I have a fear of connecting mentally, emotionally, but also in the physical. I still do not like spend time with her. Like, I don't see her. I don't spend like holidays with her or anything like that because I just am not comfortable being in that space with her. So I enjoy talking to her. You know, she's funny. She's a teacher as well. We could talk about this. She's so funny. Like, she's a good person to call and stuff like that. But it's like there is no depth. So why I'm bringing this whole thing up and why this is so fresh on my heart and why it is something of importance is because this summer I actually plan to visit her, and I plan to come to her house, like inside of her house. And I plan to like spend hours with her, and I am interested to see how that will go. I did see her before last year. I went to see her for a few hours, and it was like, baby steps, baby steps. But I didn't stay inside her house. It was always like an open place. But I'm going to try to actually see her and spend hours with her, and at least just put it all on the floor and let her know how I feel, to see where I can go from here and grow from here. But I want to do it to take care of my inner child and to take care of like that little girl in Kinga that's unlearning all of those negative traits or things that I wasn't that pleased that I've had to experience or display so much as a child. So it was an emotional episode. I don't think I've ever cried on camera. That's crazy. But it really, 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 really means a lot to me, being on the things we don't want to talk about, as like sharing stories and sharing candid conversations, having candid conversations, and being open about the things we really don't want to talk about. And me being someone that's open, I'm an open book forever. I'm going to stay an open book. I just want to let people in on just the things that make me who I am, the things that also people can relate to, even if it's not that specific thing in that specific way, but giving people opportunity of seeing what does it look like to reflect, right? What does it look like doing the hard work of doing things that you may not want to do, they may be uncomfortable to do, but also seeing like the joy in it. So on the bright side, because I am able to see how I've had to settle and people please to keep peace between her and my sister, keep peace for the weekend so I could go home on time. How I felt indebted to my daddy, so I overextend myself in ways that I shouldn't because I feel like I just owe him so much because I've been heard these things of like, oh my God, a dad is a savior. If a dad raises a girl, he's like the God, right? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I've heard that a lot and I have digested that. And I feel like I have became what other people have wanted me to be. And now at 26, I'm becoming who Nkenge wants to be and really getting to know who Nkenge is. And if you're on this journey or you're at a place where it's just like, I'm trying to figure out what's me. I'm trying to figure out who I am. I'm trying to figure out why do I do the things that I do and where that came from. I really want you all to go back to childhood. Go back to how you were raised. Go back to the things you were taught about what was valuable to you, what made you worthy. Where did you get your mentality from as it relates to money, as it relates to love, as it relates to relationships? Have you ever saw love? Have you saw kindness? Have you saw joy? Did you grow up by an angry parent? Did you grow up in a household where you had to take care of yourself and fend for yourself? Were you abandoned, right? And of course, not everyone has this horror story of a childhood, right? But I know lots of people can go back to their childhoods. And unfortunately, we as people in my community or just the people I'm around, we can go back to something as a child that has hindered us or something that has caused some type of negativity that shows up as an adult. And I didn't realize it until Dr. Lee, now that is one person I owe a lot to. And I am indebted, just like with my daddy too. I am indebted to him in some way. But Dr. Lee was a woman I met at MSU, and she asked me one question. I'm always repeat it. She always saying, Kinga, you always say you're okay, but you're that person that you get really good grades and you're perfect on the outside, but there's a lot to you on the inside. And when she sat me down and she told me that, I just cried. Like I cried. She was like, you are a girl that misses her mother. Like you wish you, like you really inside of you wish you had her. And I didn't ever really, you know what I'm saying, think about it like that, like because I got a great daddy and it's nothing I'm really missing out on per se. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I didn't really realize that gap that was in my life and in my heart until I started to unpack it and really look at it. It's like, okay, although I didn't experience sexual abuse or physical abuse, thank God, I did experience emotional and mental abuse that has played a major role on how I am, how I deal in relationships, how I deal with family, how I deal with myself. And although I have been in that space and I did go through that, I'm thankful and I'm so grateful for being at a place where I want to unlearn and I want to unpack and I want to challenge myself to do things that I haven't done before. And I do want my voice and I will have my voice and I will speak up for myself. I will practice advocating for myself and I will only do things in the future that are what I want to do, that serve me, serve my highest self, serve my best self. And as I'm learning, experiencing, dating, dealing with family, I'm realizing it's all about what Nkenge wants because only I can live a life that I want to live, right? If I don't create it, I won't have it. So this episode, I would say, I'm trying to find a way, like, how would I describe this episode? This is when I feel like I needed more from me than y'all, but hopefully y'all needed too. Because it was so unplanned. Like, y'all, when I say it was just on my heart as I was sitting there in such deep thought of like, this episode. And of course, I'm hella nervous when this comes out because I think my daddy listens to my podcast. My mom may listen. And I know she's going to like, do the absolute most. I told y'all she don't take accountability, so she may like try to go off on me, and I'm gonna let y'all know if she do, and I'm gonna tell you how I stood up for myself. But I'm like, oh my God. And then me also crying on camera, y'all. This is new. But I just want to say thank you. I want to honor again those that are dealing with mental health issues. I want to honor those that are in a space of learning and figure out who they really are, not what life has made them to be, not what their job has made them to be, not what their circumstances, their relationship, their materials has made them to be, but who are you at your heart and at your core? what has made you who you are? What is that little girl or little boy, you know what I'm saying, as a kid, telling you and wanting you to unleash as you are on your new journey and in this new season of life that we are going to? So I just want to say thank you, everybody. I really hope you all enjoyed this episode as much as I was nervously not wanting to share it, but I definitely feel like I needed to get out. And hopefully for those who have similar situations or are just analyzing and really figuring out who they are from childhood, I hope you all find some value in it. Feel free always to message me, or even if you want to call me, you know what I'm saying? My number is always in the bio, or you want to email me, whatever it is. If you want to connect about this topic or just talk about it more, or you want to have questions, or you just want to just vent, I am always here. So, per usual, thank you for listening to another episode of The Things We Do Not Want to Talk About, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Bye.